This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
Today, we're going to have us a sugar bowl.
May God bless and keep our men and women in uniform.
No definitive connection between the attack here and the Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas.
Thank you for modeling what faith in action looks like.
The smell of weed everywhere.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. The snow switch is on. It is a doozy of a day for those in the lake belts with more snow on the way. They're under lake effect snow warnings and gale warnings.
We do have a long duration lake effect snow event underway now. Visibility reduced, and we are looking at 1 to 2 feet of accumulation, but keep in mind that's falling over a 4-day period. For the rest of us, wind gust of 40 miles an hour this afternoon and tonight. After the wind, an Arctic blast. Weather Service meteorologist John Hitchcock says it'll be brutal for those in the south, but ain't nothing new for New York and Pennsylvania. The southeast states, that's where the cold will be most unusual. Here, we will be below normal, but not that cold. Highs in the 20s, maybe low 20s by the middle of the week, and lows in the teens. Single numbers, so cold, but not that unusual for January. We've got your full forecast in a few minutes. The Sugar Bowl is on in New Orleans this afternoon.
Today, we're going to have us a sugar bowl. We're going to enjoy ourselves. We're going to keep those who have lost loved ones in mind.
Tens of thousands of fans packing the stadium for the game between Notre Dame and Georgia.
It's really crazy. It gives me goosebumps. It really does, to see all them fans here in town.
It is truly incredible because the game is less than 24 hours after a terror attack. The Dome, a 10-minute walk from the site where terrorist Shazmuddin Jabbar plowed into a crowd with a truck, killing 14 and injuring 30 people on Wednesday. Governor Jeff Landry.
To protect our citizens in America from evil, you have to crush it. You can't go out there and placate it. You can't go out there and say, I'm going to put this in place and that in place and hope that evil doesn't show up on your doorstep, because it will. You have to crush it. And that's what we're going to do here.
The FBI held a press conference today saying Jabbar acted alone.
We're confident at this point that there is no accomplices.
New Orleans still on high alert, though.
Here's what we know so far. The FBI now says the suspect, Shazmuddin Jabbar, acted alone and was in fact inspired by ISIS.
An ISIS flag was located on the trailer hitch of the vehicle. Weapons and potential improvised explosive devices, IEDs, were located in the subject's vehicle.
Agents have recovered 3 cell phones and 2 laptops, and right now they are scrubbing through his digital footprint.
The New Orleans police on full display today. New surveillance video is released that showed officers heard the attack and immediately ran toward the scene as fast as they could. Those men and women being lauded as heroes.
May God bless and keep our men and women in uniform, and may God keep them safe as they protect us all.
I am so thankful for those law enforcement officers that they've saved countless other families from that same kind of grief today because of their heroism.
2 IEDs were found that never went off because Jabbar was stopped before he could detonate them. For a while, it seemed like the attack in New Orleans was tied to an attack in Las Vegas. Same rental car company, both terror suspects, former U.S. military, but the FBI said they're not linked.
No definitive connection at this point. Nothing definitive, key word there, between the attack here and the Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas.
Authorities say the man found dead in the Cybertruck that exploded in front of the Trump Hotel in Vegas was likely the same active duty Special Forces soldier that had rented it. Police found a lot of items in the truck today.
A military identification. We also found a passport. We found a Desert Eagle 50 caliber semi-automatic pistol.
The House is expected to vote for a new speaker tomorrow. Some Republicans believe current Speaker Mike Johnson doesn't have the needed votes to remain in the role. Tom Bevan with Real Clear Politics says Johnson upset many conservatives by cutting a deal with Democrats to avoid a government shutdown.
The spending bill that he negotiated with Democrats was a huge mistake, and it really opened the floodgates of criticism. I think it has thrown his speakership in doubt.
He can only afford to lose one Republican vote. Plans are set for the funeral of former President Jimmy Carter. Services begin this Saturday in his hometown of Plains, Georgia. Crowds of well-wishers gathered yesterday outside the Carter Presidential Center.
Thank you for modeling what faith in action looks like. wasn't words, it was deeds for him.
For being a role model, for being a hero, for being a friend, and thank you for showing the world what a life of service can look like.
America's 39th president will lie in state in the Capitol Rotunda next week ahead of Thursday's funeral at the Washington National Cathedral. Carter died Sunday, December 29th, at the age of 100. No one was hurt, but a giant piece of space junk has crashed into an African village south of Nairobi. The object is a metallic ring 8 feet in diameter that weighs 1,100 pounds. Preliminary assessments indicate the space debris is a separation ring from a launch vehicle, which typically burns up upon re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Mortgage rates are rising. Freddie Mac says the benchmark 30-year fixed-rate loan rose to 6.91% last week. That's up from 6.62% a year ago. And you know about Generation X and Generation Z. Well, apparently, Generation Beta started this week on the 1st of January. Experts say
these kids will grow up using technology and AI even more than kids today. They will likely use smart devices to help solve problems.
It includes kids born between 2025 and 2039, many who will live to see the 22nd century, the children of millennials and Gen Zers. Experts say their skills will far outpace their parents' technical abilities. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, what is up with that wind? We've got the details. A large fire in Friendship, New York, and the butter sculpture reveal. We've got it next from the Farm Show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Those stories after weather with Kevin Williams.
Well, lake effect snow will be increasing across our region heading into the weekend. Areas to watch, talking about communities such as Syracuse and Oswego, and likewise Jamestown and Erie. Outside of lake effect snow bands, snow flurries will fly occasionally in places, but with little accumulation. Temperatures overnight dipping into the 20s and climbing only to about 30 tomorrow. Saturday, areas of heavy lake snow southeast of the lakes. Otherwise, sun, clouds, and flurries. The Saturday high temperature in the 20s to near 30.
Thank you, Kevin. Checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. Our top story, the wind outside.
Wind gusts sustaining at 20 miles per hour, but gusts are still 30, 40 miles per hour. And it's coming right off the lake.
And right into the southern tier. Those near lakes, Erie and Ontario, in for a multi-day lake effect snow event. A dozen counties have lake snow warnings this afternoon. The wind is fueling a large fire in Friendship, New York today. Not a lot of details yet, but 10 ambulances are on the scene. That fire right across from a fire station. Medical Transport says at least 7 people required aid. Wellsville, Scioto, Cuba, and Belfast fire departments responding. After a slow rollout, legal cannabis sales continue to grow in New York. Scott Pringle reports.
Governor Kathy Hochul is announcing that the legal recreational marijuana industry has surpassed $1 billion in cannabis-related sales. Right now, there are more than 5,000 licenses, permits, and registrations issued or approved to date in New York State. Hochul says more than half of the licenses have been awarded to social and economic equity applicants, and that there's a lot of representation from minority and women-owned businesses. There are more than 275 licensed dispensaries in the state.
But pro-family forces argue the podification of the Empire State is nothing to be proud of. Jason McGuire is president of New York Families.
There's been this multi-year rollout now. It's been a debacle all the way through. Now you have the dispensaries asking for state bailouts, and you also have just the smell of weed everywhere. It's just been a terrible thing for New York. The data is beginning to come out. It is addictive, that it does affect teen use. But for our state, it's going to be too little, too late.
25 states, including New York, permit pot for recreational purposes. The 2025 Farm Show butter sculpture was revealed this morning in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It looks like a huge cow. The theme, From Moo to Marvel, Dairy Cows Power Pennsylvania.
The theme is a testament to the power of agriculture in every region of Pennsylvania. It's the engine that powers our economy, builds our communities, and drives the quality of life in the state.
The sculpture uses over 1,000 pounds of butter donated by Land O'Lakes in Carlisle, PA. This reporter with WHTM climbed behind the glass for a few minutes alone with the butter cow.
It's chilly in here, actually pretty similar to what it is outside right now. The temperature, though, isn't really what you notice most. When you are in here, what you notice most is the smell. It's not a bad smell, but you just don't really realize what a scent butter has until you stand in a small enclosure next to 1,000 pounds of it.
The farm show opens on Saturday. Next at 5, Pennsylvania is the epicenter for gender reassignment surgery in kids. A national study shows private insurance companies and taxpayer cash has paid for 14,000 children and teens to undergo medical treatments seeking to transition them. 2,000 of those happened in either Pennsylvania or New York. Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is the nation's largest purveyor of so-called gender-affirming care. Here's some of our own Greg Gillespie's conversation with medical researcher Beth Serio about the Stop the Harm database.
We're defining that as any type of hormonal interventions, cross-sex hormones or puberty blockers, and then also surgical interventions.
Parents may not be notified that their children are going through counseling, going through these medical treatments.
We've certainly heard, lots of stories in the schools, parents not being notified and the children being socially transitioned against their will.
Everybody who's listening to us knows how hard adolescence is of figuring out who we are. And talk with us a little bit about folks who, okay, I had a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, and so therefore I'm going to change my body the rest of my life. The consequences that should be talked about in a long counseling program before a medical intervention happens.
I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to really be faced with the longer-term consequences of what we've done to these children. This ideology preys on adolescents who are, many of them, in that prepubescent or early puberty years where, like you say, nobody is comfortable with their body at that time. That's a very challenging part of life, that all of us have had to go through. We need to help our children through that. When they're already feeling maybe discomfort in their biological sex and they're feeling discomfort with their body, maybe they're not feeling accepted by their peers, they encounter the transgender movement and it seems to them, to their child brains, they can just become a different gender. If you don't like your body, well, that's because you're not supposed to be a girl or you're not supposed to be a boy. You can just be the opposite gender. And that might seem like it solves some very, very short-term problems. We cannot even begin to know what long-term problems we have introduced to them. These procedures and treatments are billed as being reversible, no major side effects. We know that that is completely not true.
That's the advocacy group Do No Harm Medicine. You can hear Greg Gillespie's full interview on the Family Life News podcast page. Time next for tonight's market report brought to you by Faithward Advisors. Wall Street is closing lower with stocks down in a choppy first trading session of 2025. At the final bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 152 points to 42,392. The S&P 500 lost 13 points to 58.68, and the NASDAQ dropped 30 points to 19,280. Faithward Advisors is a Christian financial planning firm online at faithwardadvisors.com.
A new year is an excellent time to start putting first things first. Hi, I'm Rob West with a Faith and Finance Minute. The Bible uses a term that's a bit unusual to most of us. First fruits. When a crop was harvested, the first part was called the first fruits, and it was given to the Lord. The people acknowledged God's provision by giving him the first part of the harvest. Now, most of us don't harvest crops, but we do earn a living somehow, a living made possible because God provides. And how appropriate it is to thank and honor him by giving from our first fruits. Not from a crop, perhaps, but from the first money that comes into our possession each month. In other words, giving to the Lord from off the top, not from what's left over. Discover the best Christian financial articles, podcasts, and videos by visiting our website, faithfi.com, or by downloading FaithFi, Faith and Finance from your app store.
Coming up on the 5 o'clock report, a little history on those New Year's resolutions, but weather first with Kevin Williams.
Winter weather will rule for the foreseeable future. Initially, that means lake effect snows. And then a Clipper system will bring a general snowfall to parts of the region, especially Pennsylvania south, as we head into the early part of the new week. In the meantime, cold tonight and tomorrow with flurries for all. There will be lake effect snow continuing southeast of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Easily several more inches accumulating there. Temperatures overnight dipping into the 20s. and climbing only to about 30 tomorrow. On Saturday, mostly cloudy with flurries and shifting bands of heavier lake effect snow, high temperatures in the 20s and lower 30s.
All right, Kevin, finally at 5. Did you decide on a New Year's resolution? If so, hopefully you stuck with it at least till today. A bit of history on resolutions from Family Life's Mark Webster.
Let's watch the old year die with a bomb.
Yeah, the first known people to make New Year's resolutions, the ancient Babylonians. They resolved to pay back debts and return borrowed objects. Christian Methodists were among the first to revolve their liturgical calendar around the new year. In 1755, John Wesley created the Covenant Renewal Service, held the first Sunday, where people read scripture and sing hymns with the theme of renewing and strengthening their faith in God. The trick, it seems, make it past February, which is the month most New Year's resolutions fizzle out. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Thank you, Mark. And that's the world that we live in for Thursday, the 2nd of January. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.